You know, some mysteries aren't about buried treasure or anything like that. Some are about things that were right there in plain sight, and then suddenly they weren't. Today, we're diving into the really strange case of a building that just vanished. I mean, really think about it. How does a whole house just disappear? We're not talking about some little shack out in the woods. We're talking about a landmark, a really unique, substantial home that was part of its community for generations. And then, poof, it's gone. And this wasn't just any old house. This was an octagon house, part of this really cool, rare architectural fad. For almost 100 years, it was a fixture in Waverly, New York. And now, nothing. Just a kind of historical black hole where it used to be. Okay, and here's our first big twist in the story. The only picture we have that proves this house even existed, well, it's not even from its original, prominent spot. This one single kind of ghostly image only makes the mystery deeper. Where did it come from? And where on earth did it go? So, to even begin to crack this historical cult case, we have to go all the way back to the beginning. Let's start with the guy who built it and the pretty radical idea that inspired him in the first place. So, why 8 sides? You might be wondering what the big deal is. Well, back in the mid-1800s, this was a revolutionary design. The whole idea was that an octagon shape gave you more space inside with less building material, and it let sunlight hit pretty much every room in the house at some point during the day. It was innovative, a little bit weird, and perfect for an inventive kind of person. And that brings us to Andrew S. Rice. See, this guy wasn't just some homeowner. He was a foundry man, an inventor. In 1855, he actually got a patent for something called a self-setting sawmill dog, which was basically a clever device to make sawing lumber more efficient. This is exactly the kind of guy who builds an octagon house, right? A real forward thinker. So you see, this wasn't just a place to live. It was a statement. It was a piece of architecture built by a true innovator. And as Waverly's first and only octagon home, its value absolutely reflected that special status. And to really get how significant this place was, just look at this number. By 1855, only a few years after it was built, the house was valued at a staggering $4,000. Now, that might not sound like a lot to us today, but in the 1850s, that was an absolute fortune for a private home. And putting that number in perspective, well, that's what's truly revealing. A neighboring mansion, a big, beautiful house on the same street, was valued at $2,500. Another house nearby was just $1,000. Rice's octagon house was, without a doubt, the king of the block. But here's where the story takes another really weird turn. Just 3 years after it was assessed at $4,000, Andrew Rice, the inventor, the visionary, sells his masterpiece for only $1,500. Why? Honestly, we don't know for sure. But this sale was the end of one chapter and the start of a long, unpredictable journey for this house. So after Rice sold it, the story only gets stranger. The house started changing hands, a lot. And it wasn't just a home anymore. It became a bit of a chameleon. I mean, just look at this timeline. In 1867, it's a school for young ladies. 4 years later, it's a doctor's office. By 1882, it's a dressmaker's shop. This house wore a lot of different hats, but its most dramatic change, the one that's hard to believe, happened in 1879. This part is just incredible. A guy named Samuel Slaughter, who lived next door in this magnificent mansion, bought the historic octagon house. Not to live in it, not to preserve it, but to get rid of it. He just wanted to clear the land so he could build a private park for his own estate. And he actually did it. A local newspaper, the Waverly Advocate, reported it plain as day in October 1879. They just picked the whole building up and moved it around the corner to a new lot on Athens Street. Can you even imagine seeing that? An entire 8-sided house just rolling down the road. So, after being literally uprooted from its grand spot on Chemung Street, the Octagon House started its final chapter on a much, much quieter side street. Yeah, its new life was, well, a lot less glamorous. It was no longer a big statement piece. It was now just a practical 2-family rental home. And it stayed that way for over 50 years. A long, quiet period of stability after decades of constant change. And it's here, at 7 Athens Street, that the only known photograph was taken, right around 1906. This is that image we have, the Evans family, standing proudly in front of their peculiar 8-sided rental home. a real ghost from a much grander past.
So, for over half a century, the house stood at its new location. It was a quiet but still present piece of Waverly's history. And then, sometime after 1930, the records just stop. The trail goes completely cold.
This is pretty much everything we know. It was there until at least 1930. By about 1945, it was gone. But there's no record of a demolition permit, no newspaper article about a fire. It just ceased to exist.
But here's the thing, the story isn't really over. In fact, the disappearance of the Waverly Octagon is an active historical investigation. It's a puzzle with a huge piece still missing. Historians who are working to preserve the history of the Zur estate, which sits right next to the Octagon's original location, they're actively searching for answers. They're basically putting out a call to the descendants of all the families who ever lived there, just hoping that someone, somewhere, has another photograph.
And that's really why this story is still so captivating. The answer might not be buried in some dusty old archive. It might be tucked away in a forgotten photo album. The key to solving the whole mystery of Waverly's lost octagon could just be sitting in an attic right now, waiting to be found.